The Air Force Installation Contracting Center is a worldwide postured organization headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. AFICC provides responsive and mission-enabling enterprise acquisition solutions for efficient and effective mission and installation operations across the Air Force. They have over 750 personnel supporting over 3,000 contracting professionals and execute approximately $58 billion in the last 5 years in Air Force missions worldwide. Wow, that's quite a service. Now, let's hear about everything IT as a service.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chuck Destefani. I work with HumanIT here in the Dayton area, and I'll be your facilitator for this panel. 2 hours is a long time to go after lunch without a break, so while I'm doing my introduction, I invite you to stand, move your feet, whatever you'd like to do to get the blood pumping. I'm sure your ears still work as you are sitting there and enjoying the afternoon. I'm very excited to bring to you the panel that we have here this afternoon. I was invited to coordinate this effort because for the last 2.5, 3 years, I had the opportunity to serve as Ms. Vidrine's deputy while we stood up the Air Force's first Chief Data Office, and I've had direct interaction as a reservist in my capacity as the deputy CDO, but also the architect of the Cloud Vault platform that we have, visible, understandable, linked and trustworthy data in AWS, and being the liaison for Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and sitting on General Bunch's senior staff while I was in that assignment. It was a wonderful opportunity, and I have transitioned now back to private sector, and I'm currently supporting the Deems program, Colonel Talapan, Colonel Bustello, and Mr. Aldridge in AFL-CMC BES. So what we're going to do here this afternoon, okay, I own the slides. All right, so the speakers that we brought for you today to talk about everything IT as a service cover the gamut. We have Miss Eileen Vidrine, who is the Department of the Air Force's Chief Data Officer. She's joining us from the Pentagon today. We have Colonel Brenda Oppel, who is in charge of the Enterprise IT as a Service program. That's all things network capacity. We have Colonel Justin Collins, who is here with us from Cloud One, AFLC HNI, and Mr. Duong Hang, who is the Deputy Director of Platform One. So what I would like to do now is give them each the opportunity to talk about their specific areas to cover network, compute capacity, software delivery, and data, and then we'll get into our Q&A after we go through the introductions. So I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Vidrine to begin.
Well, thank you. I always begin by saying it's an honor to serve as the Department of the Air Force Chief Data Officer. It's really about, we started a journey in the department about 3 years ago to make data visible, accessible, understandable, linked, and trustworthy. And we partnered with our military departments, Tom Cicela at Navy, Greg Garcia, and now David Markowitz at Army, and Michael Conlin, as well as David Spurk at the DoD level, to really think about data as an enterprise and how to really operationalize it to support not just our department and our 2 services, but from a DoD perspective to do. So every day we work together, it's a truly trusted partnership, and I think it's something that really makes this journey special. So over the last 2 years, beginning under Mr. Conlin's leadership, we actually collaboratively authored the first DoD data strategy where every military department had an active voice in the authorship. And today, the Department of the Air Force has its first publicly published data implementation plan to operationalize the DoD data strategy. And we are still on that journey. It's really a combination of what the department needs as well as what we are required to deliver under the Foundations of Evidence-Based Policymaking Act and the federal data strategy that was published about a little over almost 2 years ago. So it's really a roadmap to help operationalize that vision. And it clearly aligns not just with the National Defense Strategy, but General Brown's vision to accelerate, change, or lose. So I think it's a really interesting and a really exciting time to be in this particular role, because every airman and guardian has a voice moving forward. And I think that's awesome.
All right, thank you. Colonel Oppel. Can you hear us?
All right, thanks, Chuck, and thanks for inviting me. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
You're fine, 5 by 5.
All right, fantastic. So I am so happy to be a part of this esteemed panel. As Chuck had said earlier, I am a part of the ITAS, or Enterprise IT as a Service Integrated Program Office. However, I will say it's a tri-chaired program, and so we have Colonel Justin Collins up on stage with us. He's one other part of the tri-chair, and Mr. Larry Shade, who is at Hanscom right now, representing the SAFCN portion of the tri-chair. And so the run the Integrated Program Office for IT as a Service. Now we're doing a risk reduction effort, which is a pilot program, to get about 60,000 airmen onto 3 different lines of effort. Those lines of effort, as Chuck did reference, is the Network as a Service, or NAS, as we call it, line of effort. We're going after getting those commercial IT solutions and the best practices for as a service concepts, and we're doing that with our vendor partners, AT&T at 3 bases, at Buckley Joint Base Dorf, and at Offutt Air Force Base. AT&T, through our other transaction authority, or OTA agreement, is charged with not only connecting them with a repurposed and re-envisioned WAN or wide area network, but also with transforming the base area network. And so we're learning a lot of lessons as far as what could our configuration management look like in the future, but also what the equipment should look like, and how to do that in a more scalable way that's viable to the Air Force in the future in the as a service concept. The other 2 lines of effort that we have are end user services, or EUS, which gives us supporting about 62,000 airmen and guardians in our risk reduction effort. And that's spread across 8 Air and Space Force bases, CONUS and OCONUS. And so what that does is that gives us a new end user device. So we're trying out a system that looks different, feels different, and is architected different than the old software desktop compliant, or SDC laptops that people use today in the Air Force. And so we're finding out that that's a lot faster, it's a lot more efficient. It was engineered from the ground up instead of having security bolted on over and over with redundant systems. And the airmen and guardians are really loving it, so we're happy to bring that to them. Additionally, the end user services line does have a new help desking concept, as well as an ITSM solution, or IT service management solution in service that allows us to envision in better ways the ITSM solutions for the airs. And so there's a lot of potential to be learned there and to be rolled out in what we will call wave 1 of the enterprise-wide approach that is coming to you calendar year next year. Our final line of effort is the compute and store line of effort, which we have been told does overlap a little bit with Cloud One, and hence that's why Major General Schmidt put Colonel Justin Collins on our team as well. So the compute and store, we have our Accenture Federal Services partner putting different compute and store solutions at Buckley and Offutt Air Force Base. And so those solutions are actually taking airmen and guardians out of the data centers and into and partnership there is teaching a little bit more about how to push the warfighters to the edge and into cloud services, and also helping us experiment within a security as a service system, as security operations center. And so with I think we're going to be coming. I do envision a partnership across the people that are on the stage, not only now, but going into the future with our organizations, definitely having a vested interest in making sure that we stay apprised of what each of us is doing, and really making sure that that's all linked and architected together the right way. So thanks, Chuck.
Thanks, Brenda. Colonel Collins.
Hey, how do you hear me?
5 by 5, go ahead.
Okay, next chart, please. Okay, so what I wanted to do is, I know we talked about cloud capacity, but one of the things I wanted to start off with was talking about C3INN, the Command Control Computers Intelligence and Networks Directorate, run by General Schmidt. And one of the things that we're trying to do is provide that one-stop shop of an infrastructure ecosystem to allow our customers to get to us and get to the workloads and capabilities that they need to be successful and to win our current and future wars. And so if you look at kind of left to right, we have the 5 different portfolios that the SAF-CN has established, whether it be Protect, End User Services, Connect, Compute and Store, which is predominantly the reason why I'm here, and then Enterprise Services, which ties into Mr. Heng and what he's going to talk about. But how that ecosystem starts with Ms. Knossenberger's vision for a 21st century storefront, where an airman, a guardian, hits the front door and gets to the capabilities that they need to get to, and then ties into that enterprise devices or user devices and Connect, whether it be ITAS, whether it be BIDI, whether it be SITAS, because we're talking multiple security levels, and then gets to the workloads that they need, whether it be within Cloud One, the Mission Modernization Office running the JWICS cloud and some of the activities in the SCI side of the house, or fences being run currently by OSD and in conversations with the Air Force in terms of how to collectively build out these cloud environments to support the capacity and capabilities that our customers need in the future. And then transitioning into the enterprise services, where you have the digital engineering environments that we're currently working to develop and implement in those environments that are already built out within fences that are supporting customers like GBSD or LRSO. Tie that with the DevSecOps capability that Mr. Heng's going to talk about, and he'll go into depth there, or data analytics or any other capabilities. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is seam together this infrastructure environment that allows our customers to get to the data that they need to do the things they need to support the warfighter. And that's kind of the big picture of where we're trying to go within C3 and INN, specifically within H&I and H&C, with our H&J partners as well, to rapidly enable JADC2 and what we're trying to get with the advanced bail management system. So I wanted to transition real quick. If you go, I think the next chart is a backup. I wanted to touch quickly on the cloud capabilities because that'll probably generate some questions. Oh, sorry, Chuck, I didn't, never mind. We'll cover the backups if we need to. So go back and we'll kick it over to platform 1.
I might need some help from the booth to go back, please. They took the backup charts out of what we have up here, apparently. Sorry about that.
No worries.
He just gave me the finger. Just hold on a second. All right.
Okay.
So there's the back. That one?
There we go.
Okay.
And so ultimately, if you're talking cloud capacity, we're looking at bringing everybody into a centralized storefront, and that's the Cloud One Kickstart. And when you talk to a warm human being and you get some information about where you want to go, you can either go the Cloud One route, which can get you into a development, integrate, test, and production environment. Or if your mission system requires something else, if you're going over to Discovery, Data One, the Vault, if you're trying to get the C2S to get to a higher classification level, if you're going to SAP, if you need to get into there, or if you're going for other platform services, whether it be Platform One, Kessel Run, or the like, our teams are there to catapult you to the mission systems that you need to get your job done. I think there's one more chart on Cloud One, if you go to the next chart. Right, and so this is kind of our process workflow. And so the outreach and onboarding is the left side of the house. And that's what, when we're talking to the labs and centers, mission systems, PEO, BES, so all of those enterprise business systems that have a need to go to the cloud. We register, we do some app analytics, we refactor if needed. We start to think about the analytics of how much you're going to pay within the environments, and then we start to push you into those environments. And when you look at the migration factory and how we're pushing capability through, that's the migration as a service, and that's what the Cloud One team is really working to deliver. And then you can see out on the right-hand side, when you talk about being in Cloud One Live, the immense amount of capabilities that are there, whether it's an AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, multiple security levels, and then tying into the different software factories, the data capabilities and environments, and the tools on top of that that our customers have to get their job done. Not all collectively provided by the Cloud One program office, but the holistic cloud capability that Ms. Knossenberger and General Schmidt and the like have a vision for where we're going with cloud. This is the ecosystem that we're trying to build out to support that. So, sorry for the jump around on the charts. I will now turn it over to Mr. Hang to talk Platform One specifically.
All right, thanks, Justin. Mr. Hang.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the invite. I'm so excited to be here and talking about Platform One. What we are, so I'll give you a quick background on myself, and then we will talk about Platform One. So I'm the Deputy Director of Platform One, joined in April of this year. I have about 19 years of government service. I was 8 years active. And I've worked for DIA, Army, the Navy, and now I get to support the Air Force again as a civilian. And one of the things that I got really excited about working for Platform One was, having seen things like Kessel Run and what they do, I knew that I wanted to be here to help our future young software developers in uniform. So that was really excites me. So what is Platform One? So I think a lot of people have a misconception of what Platform One is and what it isn't. But our mission statement, we're here to guide, empower, equip, and accelerate the DoD program offices and weapons systems through their DevSecOps journey. And you can see in this chart here, it talks about all the ecosystems of what we support today, where it's the software factories. We have partnerships with S&T. We have a lot of partnerships across the DoD with the PEOs and program offices, and of course, the defense and industrial base as well. And our vision is to innovate and to collaborate with every one of these organizations or companies, and to deliver a unified platform for people to build software and build the best and do it fast, securely, and get it out to the warfighters when they need it. In practical terms, what does that mean? We provide a safe set of DevSecOps tools so people can develop and maintain their own software and run it almost anywhere. Some of the products that, if you want to go, and I want to mention that, we are a huge customer partner with Cloud One and Enterprise IT as a Service. So we are in that same vein of providing a common way of doing the same thing so that people can focus on their mission sets. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this is a simplified view of a very complicated process, but it's something that I can speak to. And one of the things some of the things that we do here, if you look on the left side, we take a lot of the software that is out there, whether it's commercially provided, like Jira or Confluence, or open source, Jitsi, and we integrate those things together, and we allow people to get access to them through our what we call the Cloud Native Access Point, or CNAP, that's on that little blue brace there. And we basically are able to host a lot of containerized platforms on Kubernetes. And we use a lot of service mesh to orchestrate all those containers using Istio. And then that provides us with a way to develop software, to allow people to develop software, whether they implement their own pipelines for development, and they pull those containers out of Iron Bank below, and they integrate those containers into pipelines using Big Bang, which provides our infrastructure as code and configures as code. And so those are kind of the major product lines that we have today. And we also have this thing called Party Bus, which is basically our version of a pipeline that has a continuous ATO. You can jump on it and start developing right away and get a certificate to field if you make it through all the automated security gates out there. And so that's why that's some of the things that we do as a platform. So we don't necessarily just provide something for people to use, develop our way, which we can, but we also give them the tools if they want to do it themselves. So that's our introduction for Platform One. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, so some of the areas that we were going to talk about from a panel perspective for maybe like the next 10 or 15 minutes would be issues around policy, culture, and technology, and how they interact with each other. And as we go along those, can you describe some of your biggest successes as delivering your product as a service, and then what opportunities industry has to help us out? So why don't we start with Brenda? Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So obviously, just delivering new capabilities to customers at the bases, at the 8 risk reduction effort bases, is going to be considered a success, right? So we've got 22,000 users on the AT&T network. We've got 29,000 users on the Microsoft network, and they're delivering WAN services in a slightly different architected way than what users see in the AFNet, and we're able to make comparisons on that. Granted, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. We've gone through a lot of challenges to get there, both technical and policy, as well as just stakeholder management and engagement. But I will tell you that it's at least on par with what we were seeing before. Additionally, we have more capability that we want to deliver during the rest of the experiment, just so that we can prove out some of these concepts before we go into a full approach. And so one of those ways that we're going to do that is to create a commercial internet access point through AT&T's secure internet gateway offering. There's going to be a pilot at Offutt Air Force and sequentially the rest of other AT&T cases. And so we're hoping to see network speeds and customer satisfaction that are just off the charts. Because, when I uniform and I walk into an office and I'm there, for whatever tour, and I see how people operate, in the commercial space on a day-to-day basis, it's just like, wow, why is that so good and why is government so bad at doing our unclassified? Like, it shouldn't be that hard. But it has been a challenge to get through some of those policy hurdles. But again, those successes include getting those capability deliveries out. The new end user devices has just been phenomenal. Lots of good feedback there. And then I would say from an opportunities perspective for industry is the lessons that we have learned that proved our hypothesis true, that in certain cases as a service, the way we really go, and that a base by base approach is really not something that's viable or scalable when you have 750,000 end users and customers. But rather doing an enterprise-wide approach. So build in that layer of architecture that needs to be there for everybody, and then start adding on the capabilities and services on top in an as-a-service way, so that you're getting constant refreshes and upgrades to your equipment, to the solutions and things that are out there as best practices in industry. And so as you see the RFPs and the contracts start to get let for waves 1, 2, and 3, that's where industry really comes through for us, right? It's putting their patriotism first, putting their technology where they do it best, at their day-to-day jobs in their contract services, and make sure that we get that in an affordable way over multiple years, and delivering it to, like I said, all 750,000 customers with designs that maybe DoD will learn from us in our as-a-service rollout and do something like that of their own in the future.
All right, thanks. Ma'am, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'd like to say that one of our first visions was self-service data capability for our airmen. So that was the vision behind the Vault data platform. And when we started it, when I tasked you to, hey, I need a platform, we went from 0 to an IL4 platform in under 100 days. And today, that's a multi-tenancy, cross-domain infrastructure as code up to IL6 today capability. And I emphasize infrastructure as code because it has allowed us to onboard people in hours. And when COVID happened, we had an immediate need to push people out to the cloud, people that may have traditionally been working on standalone systems in the building. They needed to be able to do that from an alternate location. cloud was the solution, and the population, our constituency grew tenfold, which was awesome because we were literally onboarding Airman and Guardian in program offices in a couple of hours. And so that's the speed of relevancy, the speed of mission that our Airmen and Guardian deserve. I think one of the other great capabilities that has evolved over and matured out is the concept of bring your own tool. So I like to tell the team, how do we get to yes? It's really easy. People say, no, we can't do that. How do we get to yes? And bring your own tool was a capability that if we had a customer that needed a capability, whether it was coming out of a AFWorks tech challenge or just a local installation had a specific capability, how did we onboard that as quickly as possible? And we started really, how do we optimize the business process? And it was literally working the security as we were working the procurement. So if we knew we were going to buy a tool, we worked with our industry partner to get an evaluation copy. And today, we have multiple tools that were actually approved to be safely deployed on the network before the acquisition packet was done. So that the very first one, the contract was awarded on Friday night. Airmen came to work on Monday morning with that capability. And what that really helped us do was actually prove value to our leadership. So in the past, that may have taken you a long time, infrastructure or software as a service. You hit the renewal process about the time you got it on network, and you didn't have the data points to actually, like, do I have the procurement right? Do I have the right amount of licenses, et cetera? Today, we're getting better at that because we have 10 plus months of data points and usage to be able to forecast better and really get the initial procurements and the renewals done at the speed of mission. So when I look at where industry can really help us is, one, work with us to get that security process so that we can actually go fast together. And part of that is, and I think our Platform One colleague here talked about containerization. If you could get containerized, it helps us go faster going through that component, because our Vault platform is a
Getting your products in the Iron Bank.
that is correct, but it begins with initial containerization and then the hardened containers next. And so the Vault platform is a Platform One tech stack, and so it's really about us working together. And I think there's some great opportunities to continue to perfect that business process. So it's pretty exciting.
All right, great. And that's actually a great transition to Mr. Hang.
Exactly.
I'll pay you back later, Mr. Vidrine, for the shout out. So I think to kind of walk through some of that really great question that Chuck asked. Culturally speaking, I think one of the things that we need to make sure that we understand, if we're going to deliver enterprise services to our customers, they have to know that what's available and that it's safe and reliable. And I think that's one of the biggest, those are the biggest concerns that a lot of our customers have is what's out there, and can I make sure that if I actually adopt it, that I can trust it. And so that's something that we have to continuously educate a lot of people about what Platform One is, and sometimes some of the enterprise IT services that we deliver. We have to also make the technology easier to adopt. And we have a number of initiatives right now to actually do so, whether it's developing an automation tool so you can stand up your own pipeline, kind of a self-service, or we're actually partnering up with a lot of our some of our resellers and our BOA holders today to actually deploy Big Bang as a service that you can do through a reseller. So basically, almost like having instead of coming straight to Platform One to help you with developing your own pipeline, that you can go straight to these contractors. They'd be an authorized reseller of Platform One, and then you can kind of go and deploy your own. And whether you do that within the government, or you do it as part of, if you're a company and you want to deploy something similar to what the government deploys, then that's something that's out there as well. Some of the successes that we've had in doing some of this, as Ms. Vidrine mentioned, is one for the Vault. We've also had, in terms of the containerizations that are in the Iron Bank today, we have almost 1,000 containers that are in there that you can pull. Anyone can pull down, whether you're a private citizen, you're a company, or a government organization, you can pull down today. They come from almost 200, or I'm sorry, they come from a lot of different organizations, companies, so private companies, government. They contribute back to that DoD open source. And that's what's important. It's having this be a shared community resource for everyone. In terms of our cloud native access point, so that's something that we deployed today to allow people to get to the cloud, to get to cloud services natively. We have 31,000 daily unique IP addresses. So coming in to get through to our services, they can use their own devices to do so. So we have about 3,600 developers today that actually use their own devices. They don't have to use a government provision device to get there. And we even have about 11,000 users today that use our chat services with their devices as well. In terms of Party Bus, we have 193 product teams today that with 3,600 product developers. They run 2,500 microservices today in development and production. And there's 41 apps. So altogether, those 2,500 microservices represent 41 applications in production today on Platform One type services. Some of the things too, I think in terms of what industry can help with is, for us, we're kind of a different animal than a lot of our enterprise services, because if you look at this chart, it says continuous capability delivery. So what that means is that we have to continuously improve what we deliver today. And a lot of times that improvement requires agility, and that agility doesn't come from defining a capability upfront for the next 5 years. It's about getting talent and retaining talent. And so that is something that we struggle with. Like every organization out there, we struggle with finding and retaining talent natively, and also with our commercial partners. So those are some of the things that we have to continuously look at technology, look at the people that are out there, and try to attract the best talent so we can adopt to things that change in the environment. So those are some of the challenges that we have, and things that you can help us to identify those talent that we would have really appreciated. So anyway, that's my answer.
All right, thanks. Yeah, we can talk more about the talent here in a few minutes, but Justin, bring us home.
Okay, yeah, so when you think about Cloud One, in the evolution of Cloud One from GCSS Air Force back in the day into the Common Computing Environment 1.0 and then 2.0 and into Cloud One where it is today, from a success and an achievement standpoint, we've effectively built out, from what I've been told, is the largest cloud implementation in the world. And so as we look at that, general purpose cloud for how it was built out and in the mission for what it was built, that's a huge accomplishment to be able to serve content around the globe. And there's a chart that we have with some phenomenal metrics in terms of the amount of hits that we're getting, the amount of users hitting the site, content served, cached at the edge, all the capabilities that we're seeing in terms of delivering capabilities to our customers. And to the point where Ms. Knossenberger recently signed the Cloud One First memo that basically said, hey, if you've got a cloud requirement, you need to be going to the Cloud One program office first. And if there's good reason why you're not going to go there, then let's have that conversation. And that gets into my challenge, right? So as we move forward, what we're realizing is, the traditional business mission system had a different architectural need, data flow, and environment build out than what some of the modern mission systems of today require. And so how do we take and evolve that environment that supports business systems and edge caching around the globe, and maybe some bulk data transfer, with an architectural approach that also allows access to rapid data flow, hundreds or thousands of transactions on a minute, hourly, daily basis. And how do you seamlessly or simultaneously integrate that architecture together so that each system, despite its unique requirements, can operate simultaneously within that cloud environment? And I think that presents some of the challenges that we're seeing in the approach that we're looking at, whether it's, as Colonel Oppel mentioned, with Accenture on the compute and store and compute and store in a box. How can we bring our vendors in an as a service model and begin to think differently, apply some commercial best practices to how we're doing things? We're talking with our cloud vendor partners in terms of how do you more rapidly accelerate our cloud, our app migration process, and some of the challenges associated with the fairly rigid guardrails that were built out on Cloud One for good reason, right? If we're going to put a cloud environment, we're going to put a lot of things there, and we're going to start thinking about multi-levels of security within those environments and allowing people to go up and down the stack. We need to make sure that environment is secure. And so we're actively talking with our customers and our vendor partners to make sure that we're meeting the broad swath of mission need for cloud compute and capacity from on-prem, in the cloud, and at the edge. And then actively working to make sure that when we think about securing the cloud and those capabilities and the guardrails and who's looking at that, who has access, the identity management solution is a tough nut for us to crack right now because we're scattered to the breeze, right? And if we're really going to get to zero trust, that ICAM solution in the future is critical and foundational. So locking down the environments, but supporting multiple mission customers at multiple classification levels in a zero trust environment. I mean, think of the mission that we've got here. It's an extremely difficult one. Platform One's layering it on and doing an awesome job. And we're really trying to get after this mission set. So no shortage of need for help from our industry partners in terms of getting after the capability need there in the compute mission area. Over.
All right, well, thanks. In the last 15 minutes that we have here, I'm going to go ahead and jump to some of the questions that people have been sending in. And the first one is for Colonel Collins. And just along the lines of what you were just talking about, the question is, Internet of Things requires a prime cloud connection. So what is the plan for offering hybrid cloud as a service so we can overcome latency concerns for heavy compute on a base, meaning using whatever service provider is best for a base? We all know that Cloud One is very strong in AWS and Azure. You're also working actively with Oracle for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure connections and Google. So can you give us some specifics on what you're looking at for giving a broader palette of capacity?
Yeah, so and that's a great question and one that we're thinking about, and it kind of dovetails into what I just talked about with the compute and store in a box on ITaaS, and what we tasked Accenture to do is look exactly at that same thing in terms of what can we take in an environment, say a comm squad or in a data center, and what needs to be pushed to the cloud, what needs to be turned off. A lot of times we don't like to turn stuff off, but what can be consolidated, what needs to be run on-prem because it doesn't make sense to deal with either the giant compute, the store builds in the cloud, and we've got that organic capability on-prem, and then allowing, so not just on ITaaS side, right? So we've got a startup capability we're calling Project Domino that we're looking at this with the Cloud One team in terms of looking at data centers on bases across the Air Force, and whether it's that compute and store in a box or it's a rapid data center consolidation to try to get some synergies with an on-prem environment linked to the cloud and the connectivity to support I don't want to say zero, but minimal latency and those types of things as people get their job done. So, I mean, I think I think we're getting there, Chuck, to be honest, and we're thinking about that. And as we continue to move forward with some of these data center consolidation efforts, we fully realize that not everything needs to go to the cloud. But we do have an approach that says, hey, if we need vendors, and we do have a couple that could come in here and help provide that capability for us as a service and free up airmen and guardians to go do other more important missions, then we're definitely intrigued, and we're going to be looking at that in the future.
What the services are doing with CNAPs, and they're really blending what was traditionally known as DoDin IP space with commercial IP spaces. And that's happening across the board with a bunch of different vendors. And the project I'm assigned to at DISA right now is a robotic process automation. And we're discovering corners of robotic process automation everywhere around DISA. And then we're finding out, we're being told it's on-prem, but no, it's actually hosted in a cloud provider. So I actually think it's wonderful that you don't know where the service is being hosted, you just know you can get to it from your DoDin laptop.
Yeah, Chuck, and you brought up CNAP, and it's an interesting point, and Mr. Heng kind of brought it up as well. As we look at that as an infrastructure piece, and one of the reasons why I'm not sitting there on stage with you is we have Mr. Hazelhorst, the lead for Zero Trust here at Hanscom this week, and we're doing immersion days with him to talk about all things Zero Trust, as well as the CNAP in a box, which we're calling Project Tesseract, as well as the cloud native access point that Mr. Heng mentioned relative to Platform One and its utility and scalability across the rest of the department. So lots of great activity going on there, and more to come as we continue to plow that Zero Trust space. Over.
All right, excellent. The next question. The Navy data iPlan is classified. Is an unclassified version of the Air Force iPlan available publicly?
I have to check, because I think right now it's a Department of the Air Force component, so I need to go back to my team to see if it can be a publicly releasable document.
Okay.
But when we first published our data surface reference architecture, it was a internal only document, and then we took out a few small items that allowed it to be a publicly releasable document. So
okay.
I think we need to explore that.
Are there other policies coming out of your office that we should know about?
The focus right now is really, I think, for us on information sharing, because whenever we have a hot mission, it's critical that we not just be able to share information within the Department of the Air Force, both air and space, but it's also about sharing it with our partners in DoD and beyond. So I think that when we look at the DepSec's Creating Data Advantage memo, we're going to see a lot of alignment around information sharing very quickly, which I think is pretty exciting. We're also going to see some policy at the DoD level coming down on data stewardship, and then there will be an Air Force supplement that aligns to the data stewardship component. And that's work that we've been working with all of the data officers across our department, so that we're leaning forward, ready to move forward on that particular piece. I believe the DoD data stewardship document is in coordination right now, and so we'll follow on right afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, and I noticed that piggybacks on what Michael Conlon said this morning about the data trust and the data sharing, and how it can take months to put the agreement in place where an interface can be built in hours from a technical perspective. So culturally, we're getting after that. Okay. Colonel Oppel, we got several questions here on EIT as a service. Can you talk about, you mentioned about the program restructuring. One of the questions was, why has the rollout stalled? And I assume the restructuring and the looking at providing services in a different way might be part of that. So if you could talk about why the rollout is where it is, and then add to that, what your measures of success are.
Sure. So I wouldn't necessarily say stalled. I would say that we are where we are right now on capability delivery because of the global pandemic partly, but because of supply shortages in supply chain management. It's also caused some problems. But, you know, when you think about in the grand scheme of things, at the very beginning in 2017, when we asked for how much, we gave an estimate of how much money we might need to conduct the risk reduction effort at these, I think at the time we had set up to 14 and then up to 20 bases. We had asked for quite a lot of money. And over the course of the last 4 fiscal years, we haven't received all of money that we said that it was going to take to get out of all of those capability deliveries. So what we've seen instead is some of the risk reduction effort bases have pilots of one capability and the others don't. So for example, Buckley has a tech cafe that the vendor partner SAIC has provided, but none of the other bases have a tech cafe because again, this is an experiment. If we can reap the benefits of a tech cafe at one location and prove our hypothesis true or false, that is beneficial to customers, then we probably aren't going to spend the extra money to do it 8 more bases in the risk reduction effort. We're just going to plunk it into what would be the wave 1 enterprise-wide approach. So I would say that that's probably answering the first part of the question. Can you remind me what the second half was?
What metrics are you using to define your success? And, well, let's just stop there for now.
Yeah, super. So obviously, we wouldn't be doing any good analysis if we didn't both have quantitative and qualitative, objective and subjective data to look at this for measures of success. So, we look at network performance. We look at our engineering team, led by Mr. has done some thing of a specific program that will allow us to kind of measure apples to apples, since we don't have all of the data feeds that we need from DISA to compare apples to apples as traffic traverses their IAPs. So I would say that our team is going after it really in a very concerted effort to make sure that we're able to quantitative numbers. Additionally, we've got, the back end of the subjective stuff too, right? So we've got surveys that go out. Mr. Coltwoodall, our Chief Experience Officer of the Department of the Air Force, has helped us with the Air Force Survey Office create a pulse survey. And that pulse survey does go out to 1% of the entire Department of the Air Force every day. It's 1 question, 6 optional questions that they can opt in to answer or not, as well as a comment block. And so Colt and our team are able to parse out those subjective feedback comments into what it came from an ITAS risk reduction effort base, or it came from a typical net base. And so data we're able to kind of tweak as what is the sentiment, what is the customer sentiment at one of the risk reduction effort bases, and then be able to get after specific comments to the we found out risk reduction effort basis were getting annoyed with our ITSM tool because it was sending too many requests or too many updates with email to them. So SAIC and ServiceNow dialed that back down to just the needed requests when something has to go to them for an email. And then, you're not bugging the customer every 5 minutes when it transverses one queue to another queue in the ITSM tool. So I think the feedback that we're getting is helping us really not only tweak the capability of the risk reduction effort, but absolutely getting after the lessons that we need to learn in order to take this into an enterprise-wide approach. When you're talking about going to 173 points of presence across the department, you really want to get that. You want to get that right, or as right as you can, so that we're not overspending, and that we're delivering the right capability to the customer.
All right, thanks. We have 1 minute left, so I'd like to do just a quick thank you to all the speakers, and then give you the opportunity, hearing each other here this afternoon. Is there a parting thought you'd like to share with your peers? Why don't we start with Mr. Hang?
Great, thank you. I think the the biggest thing that I want to impart on the group is that, this is a journey that is going to be a very long journey, and we need everyone to participate and support each other. And that is something that I've learned my whole career, and certainly even in the enterprise IT business where you own a lot of capabilities and infrastructure, we still can't do it alone. And that's why there's the three of us here, plus Ms. Vidrine, is to deliver that capability to our warfighters. And so I think that's one of the biggest messages. And sometimes you can't do it alone, and you can't do it with just having people provide funding when they have it. Sometimes you have to do it where you provide the funding centrally. And so that's something that I think as a department, and defense and Air Force and Space Force, we have to look at what really is capability that people really want to take for granted because they want to focus on their core capabilities. And then as service providers, as the enterprise service providers, we have to make a pitch that, hey, this is something we can do, you can trust us, and that way you can focus on your core mission. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks for being with us. Colonel Collins.
Yeah, so I want to say, I think Colonel Oppel had it on her chart, right? So from General Brown, accelerate, change, or lose. That's huge. And when you have the motivation of somebody like Ms. Knassenberger, and she's ready, willing, and able to upend policy to make sure that we can deliver what we need to deliver to accelerate, change, or lose. When we have General Holt in AQC driving contract change and contract policy that allows us to get super creative. I mean, even when Dr. Roper was there, and all of the crazy stuff that we're trying to do to accelerate the way we're delivering capability from a contract and acquisition timeline, and he said in our conference room, and he's like, you guys haven't made me nervous yet. Like, let's really, really get creative. And the way our operators are looking at the mission set differently, and our vendor partners, you guys are bringing it to us differently, uniquely, and understand the impetus for accelerating change or lose. And I think that whole of government, that whole of industry, and the partnership that we have there and the leadership that we have in place to drive that change that we need is super exciting. And I'm just glad to be part of it. And I appreciate the invite to speak today.
All right, thank you. Colonel Oppel.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the invitation to speak today. I appreciate our esteemed colleagues here on the virtual stage and there in person. And, I just know that, like Mr. Conlon said this morning, with the pace and expectations of digital transformation, that is continually rising to delight our stakeholders. And as we try to go into a joint all-domain command environment of the future, if your underlying infrastructure is crap, it's just not going to be able to move the information. And Ms. Vidrine's data concepts are not going to have a platform with which to put that big data on. So I really am a strong believer that the enterprise IT as a service has taught us this into an enterprise-wide approach. And I'm really excited to be able to do that in the future. Just got to have that continual momentum to do this, not only in the budget, but also the appetite for the human transformation that has to come along with it, to be able to do things in a different way and be okay with that and take a little bit of risk where maybe you didn't take it before. And just like Colonel Collins, Mr. Hang said, it's trusting that our commercial government industry partners want to do what's best for national security. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Ma'am.
And I look at it that my team wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't ITAS working on a rock solid digital foundation. If it wasn't we get our Cloud One services and our compute and store through that program office. We get our tech stack through Platform One. We take the great work of others and use it as a springboard to really accelerate change. And so, I like to say data is a team sport, but really it's one team, one fight, working together to accelerate that change. And I'm really grateful to have such trusted partners as we move forward, because we are making this collaborative effort together. We're really pushing our department to truly move fast and into that digital component that today's digital airman not just expects, but is going to demand for us to be successful in the future.
Exactly. Well, thank you to all of our speakers. I invite everyone in the room to help us thank the speakers today.